Watch any room full of powerful people carefully, and you will notice something almost every time. The most influential person in that room is rarely the one talking the most. They speak less, they choose their moments carefully, and when they finally do speak, everyone listens. This is not an accident of personality. It is a discipline, one that separates those who merely seek attention from those who actually command respect. Powerful people never overtalk, and understanding why reveals one of the most overlooked principles of real influences. Why excessive talking signals a need for approval. Every word spoken carries a cost, whether people realize it or not. When someone talks excessively, filling every silence, adding commentary to every topic, offering an opinion on everything regardless of relevance, they are usually revealing something beneath the surface, a need to be heard, validated, or acknowledged. This need, however unintentional, communicates a specific kind of insecurity that undermines the very authority the person may be trying to project. Robert Greene often explains that those who require constant verbal participation in every conversation are often signaling that their sense of value depends on being seen and heard continuously. This dependency creates an imbalance in any interaction, because the person speaking constantly needs something from the room, attention, agreement, or acknowledgement, while those who speak sparingly need nothing at all. Needing nothing is precisely what generates power, because it removes leverage that others could otherwise use against you. Think about a meeting where one person speaks on every point raised, regardless of whether they have anything meaningful to contribute. Over time, colleagues begin to tune this person out, not because their ideas lack value entirely, but because the constant stream of commentary drowns out any individual point that might otherwise stand out. Compare this to someone who remains silent through most of the discussion, then offers a single, well-considered observation near the end. That observation carries far more weight, not because it is necessarily more intelligent, but because its scarcity makes it impossible to ignore. Why silence creates space for others to reveal themselves there is a strategic advantage to speaking less that goes beyond simply appearing composed. Every moment you remain silent is a moment someone else fills with information, opinions, and unintentional revelations about their own thinking, motivations, and weaknesses. Powerful people understand that listening is not passive. It is one of the most active forms of intelligence gathering available in any social or professional interaction. Robert Greene frequently points out that those who talk the least in any given exchange often walk away knowing the most, while those who dominate the conversation reveal the most about themselves without gaining equivalent insight in return. This asymmetry creates a significant advantage over time because understanding someone's motivations, fears, and intentions provides leverage that talking excessively could never produce. Consider two negotiators approaching the same deal. The first fills every pause with explanation, justification, and additional offers, revealing their urgency and their limits far earlier than necessary. The second remains largely silent, allowing the other party to fill the space, often revealing more about their true position than they intended. By the time the second negotiator speaks, they possess significantly more information than they started with. Information the first negotiator gave away freely through unnecessary talking. Why overtalking diminishes the value of everything you say there is a simple economic principle that applies directly to speech. Scarcity increases value. When someone speaks constantly, every individual statement they make becomes less significant simply because there is so much of it. Listeners begin to filter, unconsciously deciding which parts of the constant stream deserve attention and which can be safely ignored. This filtering process often means that even genuinely important points get lost within the noise of excessive talking. Robert Greene often notes that historically, the most respected voices in any field were rarely the loudest or most frequent. They were selective, offering commentary only when it served a clear purpose, and this selectivity trained those around them to pay closer attention whenever they finally chose to speak. Over time, this created a reputation where their words carried inherent weight precisely because they were never wasted on unnecessary commentary. This principle applies directly to everyday interactions as well. Someone who offers feedback on every decision, regardless of whether that feedback was requested, eventually finds their input dismissed or ignored, simply because it has become background noise rather than meaningful contribution. Someone who reserves their feedback for moments that genuinely require it finds that their input is received with significantly more consideration, precisely because it does not arrive constantly. Why over-talking reveals weakness under pressure. One of the clearest indicators of internal composure, or the lack of it, emerges during moments of tension, disagreement, or criticism. People who feel threatened often respond by talking more, explaining excessively, defending every point, and attempting to overwhelm the situation with volume and speed rather than substance. This reaction, while understandable, almost always signals vulnerability rather than strength. Robert Greene explains that those who remain composed under pressure understand that excessive explanation during conflict often does more harm than good. Every additional sentence spoken in a defensive state provides more material for an opponent to analyze, challenge, or exploit. Meanwhile, silence or brief, measured responses deny that same opponent the information they might be seeking to escalate the conflict further. Think about someone facing unfair criticism in a professional setting. If they respond with an extended, anxious defense, listing every justification for their actions, this reaction often reads as guilt or insecurity, regardless of whether the criticism was actually valid. Someone who responds with a brief, calm statement, then allows silence to follow, often appears significantly more confident, precisely because their restraint suggests they do not feel the need to prove anything to those questioning them. How this principle extends into leadership and long-term influence, the discipline of speaking, less becomes particularly important in positions of leadership where words carry consequences far beyond individual conversations. Leaders who talk excessively often find that their teams stop distinguishing between casual commentary and genuine direction, creating confusion about which statements require action and which are simply passing thoughts. This blurring of significance can undermine effective leadership considerably, regardless of the leader's actual competence or intentions. Robert Greene frequently observes that the most effective leaders throughout history developed a specific discipline around communication, speaking deliberately, choosing their moments carefully, and allowing silence to create space for others to contribute and reveal their own thinking. This approach not only preserved the weight of their words, but also created an environment where team members felt genuinely heard rather than constantly competing for space in a conversation dominated by leadership commentary. This principle extends into personal relationships as well. Partners, friends, and family members who dominate every conversation with their own perspective often find that others gradually stop sharing openly, either out of frustration or a sense that their input is unwelcome. Those who practice restraint, allowing space for others to speak fully before offering their own perspective, often build deeper, more trusting relationships over time, precisely because their listening signals genuine respect for the other person's voice. The difference between restraint and withholding genuine connection, it is important to distinguish this principle from becoming distant, cold, or emotionally unavailable in relationships that deserve genuine connection and communication. The discipline of speaking less applies specifically to unnecessary commentary, defensive over-explanation, and constant participation purely for the sake of being heard. It does not mean withholding meaningful conversation, genuine emotional support, or honest communication with those who deserve it. Healthy relationships still require open dialogue, particularly during moments of genuine misunderstanding or when emotional support is needed. The principle of restraint applies most directly to situations involving unnecessary commentary, conflict, or moments where excessive talking would reveal vulnerability rather than provide genuine value. Recognizing this distinction prevents the misuse of restraint as an excuse to avoid meaningful connection altogether. How to develop the discipline of speaking less? Developing this discipline requires conscious practice, particularly for those accustomed to filling every silence automatically. The first step involves noticing the impulse to speak before it happens, pausing briefly to consider whether the comment about to be made genuinely adds value or whether it exists simply to fill an uncomfortable silence or seek acknowledgement from others. This pause, even a brief one, often reveals that many comments people habitually make were unnecessary in the first place, existing purely out of social reflex rather than genuine contribution. Over time, this awareness allows for more selective, intentional communication, where every statement carries greater weight because it was chosen deliberately rather than offered automatically. The second step involves becoming comfortable with silence itself, resisting the urge to fill every pause in conversation. This discomfort fades with practice as the benefits of restraint become increasingly apparent, both in how others respond and in the reduced mental energy required to maintain constant conversational participation. Powerful people never overtalk. Not because they have less to say, but because they understand that excessive speech diminishes the value of every word spoken. Silence creates space for genuine insight, protects against revealing vulnerability during moments of pressure, and builds a reputation where words, when finally spoken, carry significant weight precisely because they are chosen deliberately rather than offered constantly. This is not about becoming distant or withholding genuine connection from those who deserve it. It is about recognizing that true influence often comes not from being heard the most, but from ensuring that when you do speak, everyone listens